Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the update's new power dev server, and now we're having a look at a new premium Italian vehicle. This is a ground vehicle, it's rank 2, battle rating 2.3, and it's the Celere Sahariano, which is a really cool name. So what is this? Well, it's a flat boy. It's incredibly small when it comes to it, at least in height, and generally it is a pretty cool little premium tank. You can find it here, right next to the M1441, which is another pretty interesting premium tank for the Italians in the beginner's pack, of course. And this one has exactly the same gun as that machine. The gun itself is a 47mm 4740, and it fires, as you can see, a ton of ammunition. This thing can carry 122 rounds if you really wanted to. Now, generally you shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't carry 122 rounds, but the fact that you can is a nice touch. It has 10 degrees of gun depression, which is wonderful. Also has access to 20 degrees gun elevation, which is nice as well. That's backed up by an 8mm Breda Mod 38 machine gun and also 4 members of crew. You got a driver, you've got a machine gunner, who I'm guessing is more of a radio man, you got the gunner, and then of course you have the loader as well. So this thing doesn't actually have a commander. I'm guessing one of these guys is supposed to be the commander, but it does have quite a beefy engine for its size. So this thing is 13.5 tons, and it has access to a 275 horsepower engine, which means it has great acceleration and can motor about the place. When we look at the transmission, it has 3 gears for 60 kilometers an hour and 1 for 4.5. So once you're in a situation, you ain't getting out. So make sure that you are, getting out of, make sure you don't put yourself in bad situations. It also is 336% and 150% on the rewards. The M1441 is slightly better than it when it comes to it. This one actually has 180 on the SL, where the Sahariano only has 150. So you lose out a little bit there when it comes to it. The armor is not great, gotta be honest. Upper glacis is 15mm, then 20mm here. Lower glacis is 20mm, but where the driver is, he gets a solid 35mm. The turret's a slightly different story, but it still ain't gonna stop much. 40mm on the gun, then behind that you have 30mm, but on here it's only 30 to punch through. Then on the sides you're looking at 25, and then 25 on the back. The sides of the machine of the hull, 15 and then 15, and then on the back you're looking at 15 and then 8 on the top. So this thing's going to get eaten by planes. Even if they just have 50 cals, you'll easily be able to go through this. Only 10mm on the turret, and on the engine deck only 8mm worth of armor. So if this thing gets into, when the aircraft come, it's going to have a bit of a problem. Looking at the modifications, since this is a premium, you get them all for free, which is nice. One thing to note about this, and I think this is probably going to change, this machine doesn't get access to artillery. I find that very odd. Since it's a medium tank, the majority of medium tanks in the game get access to artillery. I don't know why this one would be any different. And when it comes to the ammunition, it gets a HE shell. Don't use it. And then it also gets access to an APBC, which pens 69mm and 60 and 26. As I said, exactly the same as the standard 4740 on the other vehicles. It's okay against the majority of vehicles you'll fight, but it will struggle against some of the more armored targets, such as the Shermans and things like that. So you do have to be a bit careful when you move around. Now, with the customization, this thing has a standard skin. It also has the grey-green, which looks very depressing. Polka dot shop tricolor, bicolor as well, very odd green. Tricolor desert, one of my favorites. The bicolor desert, and also the winter spotted camouflage. So tricolor desert we'll go for, just because it's the nicest, and move around with this machine. When we look at this, what we see is a machine which should handle very well. It should have access to a pretty stable gun without a stabilizer, and should have good speed behind it, but also it's a thick boy. And it's also a very much low rider. Look how small the turret is compared to everything else. This means that as a target, it's actually going to be quite hard to hit because of how low to the ground it is. So that's a bit of a problem when you're fighting this. And another thing I would like to see with this vehicle in general is I would really like to see the fact that the camera was pushed out just a little bit back behind it. I think just like the Floracrad, this machine takes up way too much of the screen compared to what I've seen before. So that's, at least to me, a bit of a problem. When the AP-BC pens, it does a lot of post-pen damage. You can see the speed of this machine really motoring now, showing the overall nice issue that we have of it. And you can see the traverse of the tracks as well, works incredibly well for it. So general maneuverability going forward and going around corners is great. The turret's a little bit slow, but you know, it's not the end of the world. You can definitely make sure to try and get around that. When it comes to penning harder targets such as the Matilda, you should have a little bit more of an issue, which is generally going to be the problem for any 47mm gun. Going through that front plate is not going to be easy, so you're going to have to flank, and with the speed that this thing has and the general acceleration from about 10 to 30, I think it's actually possible for you to be able to. Then you've also got the 8mm Breda. Just when you're about to die, you can shoot an enemy with it, so that's nice. And you've just got to make sure that the turret keeps up with the overall maneuverability of the vehicle. You can see even with the Matilda, because it's well armored all around it, you can't really pen it unless at specific points where the thing goes boom. So hopefully you don't run into too many heavy tanks with this thing, otherwise you might have a bit of an issue. I definitely think, since this thing has such a low profile, what will end up happening is a lot of vehicles will not actually be able to see this thing from like a glance, so therefore you'll have more chance of getting the first shot off. Whether the 47mm that you have is going to allow you to be able to, you know, do something with that initial advantage is another question. I want to just see if I can show you guys how the penetration on the rounds work, or if it even shows up with this. I was able to do it with the M48 earlier on, which was kind of nice, but it looks like it isn't modeled for the 47. Basically, if you didn't know, when you shoot a vehicle up close, or if you shoot a vehicle and non-pen it, the shell can actually get stuck in the vehicle now, which is really cool to see. But it doesn't seem to be working with the 40. Oh no, there you go. So there you can see the 47mm shell stuck in the Churchill itself. There. Oh, let's just get a bit of focus here. There we go. So you can see those two non-penned and the round dissolved, but on this side you can see that the rounds actually got stuck in the turret. How cool is that? I really like the fact that that is the case. So yeah, it's a lovely touch. I'm very happy to see it, and I'm glad they do it. You can see the traverse on this machine with its wide tracks is working incredibly well. Lovely to see that. You can see the wonderful ricochet there as well, and hear that wonderful sound. But if you ever come up against a Churchill, your only real hope is to do something like that with it, and that's not always going to happen, let's be honest. So yeah, that might be a problem. I think what they're going to do with this machine is, my guess would be that the M1440 didn't sell very well as a beginner vehicle. Just because, even though it is kind of cool, it has its issues. It's not too fast, you know, the gun is okay, but it's not the best. And I think they're going to relegate this thing to be in the beginner pack vehicle instead of the M1440. That would be what I would do. Oh! Also, if you want to see some of the new lighting effects, can you see the lighting effects on the actual tank itself? Like with the beautiful lighting here. Isn't that nice? So I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah, this thing becomes the new beginner pack vehicle instead of just a GE vehicle, to give individuals a little bit more of a chance at being a little bit more useful against some of the compatriots that are around the place. If I was going to choose between this and the M1440, I definitely would pick this because of its maneuverability, because of the low profile of it. It just seems like a much better choice than something like it. So I'm very happy to see this vehicle. It's one I've been looking forward to for a long time, basically because of knowing about, you know, the prototype and knowing about all of the interesting information around it. It has got a really cool history and a really interesting, you know, history around it. So yeah, it's wonderful to see, and hopefully many people will enjoy it too. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Trigger Hippie, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hans, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.